always, it's Miss Simpson, and guess what time it is? Well, I'm sure you saw from your assignment title that it is time for our read aloud. We are almost done with Gregor the Overlander. We should finish up next Thursday, I think, maybe Friday. I don't know, Thursday or Friday, we're going to finish up Gregor the Overlander. But let's go ahead and let's get started reading chapter 21. We're going to talk about what happened in chapter 20. And then I am going to make you do a flip grid just to make sure you're paying attention and listening. So in chapter 20, the very end of it, they decided to go out with Rip Red. They're like, okay, fine. You know what? We've got to trust him. There's no other choice. So they're going out with Rip Red. And guess what happens? They are going down a tunnel. And the whole reason that Rip Red brought them down that tunnel is to disguise their smell, to make them smell like the rest of the Underland. Well, as they're going, Rip Red said, you know what? Yeah, I can hear the spitters. Spitters are coming. Spinners are coming. Well, spinners did come, but Vicus sent them. Vicus wanted them to be the spinners that were supposed to follow them on the journey, but one brown one, right when he got there, fell over dead. And now all that's left is the orange one. We don't know what's going to happen with the orange one. Is it nice? Is it going to come with them? What's going to happen? Is it sad? Was the brown one his friend? We don't know. So while I'm reading, I want you to think about the prediction that you made yesterday. You were supposed to tell me what you thought was going to happen with the orange spider. So think about what you said yesterday. And then one thing you're going to see is, were you right? Were you correct? If you weren't, you are going to have to tell me on your flip grid. Yes, I was, or yes, I wasn't. And then I'm going to have one more little sneaky peek that you're going to do. All right. Let's go ahead and let's read chapter 21. So sit back, relax. This is supposed to be just an easy peasy video that you just listen to and have fun with. Okay, ready. Gregor looked at the spider in shock. In its final moments, it had rolled onto its back and curled up its legs. Blue liquid seeped out of a wound in its belly, staining the stone floor. So we're all here, said Gregor softly. What do you mean? Asked Henry. Gregor pulled the prophecy from his pocket. Sandwich was right. We're all here together. At least we were for a few seconds, he read out loud. To over, to under of royal descent, to flyers, to crawlers, to spinners ascent, one gnawer beside and one lost up ahead. He couldn't bring himself to say the next line, but Rip Red could, and 8 will be left when we count up the dead. Well, 1 down, 3 to go, said Rip Red, poking the spider with the end of its tail. Stop it, said Gregor. Oh, what? We can't pretend that any of us was very attached to this spinner. We don't even know its name, except maybe you, Rip Red said to the orange spider. Treeflex, said the orange spider. I am she, called Gox. Well, Gox, I suppose you're hungry after your journey, but our food is limited. None of us will think less of you if you'd like to dine on Treeflex, said Rip Red. Gox immediately began to pump juice into Treeflex. She's not going to... Oh, man, said Gregor. Spiders are neither squeamish nor sentimental, said Rip Red. Thank goodness for that. Gregor turned away so neither he nor Boots could watch the cannibalism. He was glad to see that Henry and Lexa looked a little green too. Okay, pause real quick. Yes, the orange spider is eating the brown spider that just died. Blech, nasty, isn't it? Okay, let's keep going. Look, if anything happens to me or Boots, don't let that spider or spinner drink us, toss us off the cliff in a river, anything, okay? He said. They both nodded. You will return the same favor for us, said Lexa wanly, and our bats? And Timp and Tick, too, I promise, said Gregor. He could hear the slow sucking sounds as Gox drained Treeflex's body. Jeez, he added. Fortunately, it didn't take Gox long to eat. Rip Red began to grill her about the rat attack. She told him an entire army, several hundred rats at least, had invaded the land of the spiders. The spiders had held them off, but many had died on both sides before the rats had finally retreated. Vicus had come by after the carnage and had sent Gox and Treeflex on his bat to the tunnel entrance. Why? Asked Gox. Why do the gnawers kill us? I don't know. It may be that King Gorger has launched a total Underland attack, or it may be they caught wind of 2 Overlanders heading toward our land. Did they mention the warrior of the prophecy of Grey? Asked Rip Red. There were no words, only death, said Gox. It is quite fortunate you found us. It would have taken much time to free 2 spinners from King Gorger's prisons unnoticed, and we have no time to waste, said Rip Red to Gox. He turned to Gregor. This attack on the spinners does not bode well for your father. What? What? Why not? Asked Gregor, feeling his insides go icy. Vicus has done a remarkable job of concealing you. No rat save me has seen you and lived to tell of it. The rats do not know the warrior has arrived, but the fact that humans have brought overlanders to the spinners will make them suspicious, said Rip Red. The wheels seemed to be visibly turning in his head. Still, there's much confusion and war, and no rat has identified you. We move on now. No one argued. They packed up and headed out the far side of the cavern into a drier, roomier tunnel. Aurora and Ares were able to fly now, although the space was dangerous for riders. We shall go on foot, Lexa told Aurora. Even if you can carry the rest of us, what will be done with the Gnar? So the bats took the air with the remaining packs. Gregor watched them enviously. Lucky I'm not a bat. I might just fly out of here and not look back. Aurora and Ares would never do that. They are bonded to myself and Henry, said Lexa. How does that work exactly? Said Gregor. When a bat and a human bond, they swear to fight to the death for each other, said Lexa. Aurora would never leave me in danger, nor I her. Does everybody have a bat? Asked Gregor, thinking it would be nice to know somebody who was going to hang around and defend you in this place. Oh no, some never find a bat to bond with. I became one with Aurora when I was quite young, but this is not common, said Lexa. How come you bonded so early? Asked Gregor. After my parents were killed, I went through a time where I never felt safe on the ground. I spent all my waking hours in the air on Aurora. It is why we fly so well together, she said simply. Vigus convinced the council to allow us to bond early. After that, I was not so afraid. Are you afraid now? Said Gregor. At times, she admitted, but it is no worse than if I were in regalia. You see, I tire of constant fear, so I made a decision. Every day when I wake up, I tell myself that it will be my last. If you're not trying to hold on to time, you are not so afraid of losing it. Gregor thought this was the single saddest thing anyone had ever said to him, and he couldn't answer. And then, if you make it to bedtime, you feel the joy of cheating death out of one more day, she said. Do you see? I think so, said Gregor numbly. An awful thought struck him. Wasn't Lex's strategy just an extreme form of his own rule? True, he didn't think about dying every day, but he denied himself the luxury of thinking about the future with or without his dad. If he hadn't fallen through the grate in his laundry room and discovered his dad was still alive, if his dad had never come home, how long would he have gone on refusing to be happy? His whole life? Maybe, he thought, maybe my whole life. Gregor hurried on with the conversation. So how do you actually bond with the bat? He asked Lexa. It's a simple ceremony. Many bats and humans gather. You stand face to face with your bat and say a vow, like so, said Lexa, extending her hand and reciting a poem. Aurora the Flyer, I bond to you. Our life and death are one, we two. In dark and flame, in war and strife, I save you as I save my life. And then your bat recites it back, but using your name. Then there is a feast, concluded Lexa. So what happens if one of you breaks the vow? Like if Aurora flew off and left you in danger, asked Gregor. Aurora would not, but a few vows have been broken. The punishment is severe. The one at fault is banished to live alone in the Underland, said Lexa, and no one lives long in the Underland alone. Fascinating as your native rituals are, do you think we might proceed in silence? Given that the entire rat nation is on the lookout for us, it might be prudent, said Rip Red. Lex and Henry shut up. Gregor wished they could talk more. Lexa acted differently when she wasn't with Henry. Friendlier, less arrogant, but Rip Red was right about the noise. Fortunately, Boots dozed off. For several hours, all they heard were the light tap of their footsteps and the scraping sound of Rip Red's teeth on a bone he'd saved from lunch. Gregor felt consumed with new worries about his dad. From what Rip Red had said, it seemed like the rats might kill him to keep Gregor from reaching him. But why? That wouldn't change the prophecy, would it? He guessed no one really knew. And what about the last stanza? He enrolled the prophecy and read it so many times. He memorized it without trying. The last who will die must decide where he stands. The fate of the 8 is contained in his hands. So bid him take care, bid him look where he leaps, as life may be death, and death life again reaps. He couldn't make heads or tails of it. All he could figure out was that whoever died fourth had a pretty big responsibility to the 8 who were still living. But how? What? Where? When? The final stanza of the Prophecy of Grey left out all the details that would have made it useful. Rip Red kept them moving until everyone was stumbling with fatigue. He gave the order to stop in a cavern that at least had a dry floor and a spring with drinkable water. Gregor and Lexa passed around their dwindling food, which was disappearing much faster than he had anticipated. He tried to object when the roaches gave their food to Boots, thinking he would share his own. Let them feed her, said Rip Red. A crawler can live a month with no food if it has water. And don't bother feeding Gox. Tree Flex will hold her for longer than our journey will last. The cavern was cold. Gregor stripped off Boots' damp clothes and put on a fresh set. Something was wrong with her. She seemed too quiet and her skin was clammy and cold. He curled up under the blanket with her, trying to warm her up. What would he do if she got sick? They needed to be home with his mom, who always knew just a combination of juice and medicine and pillows to make it all right. He tried to console himself with the idea that his dad could help when they found him. Everyone was so tired from their trek that they fell asleep immediately. Something woke Gregor from a heavy sleep. All right, here it goes, guys. A sound? A movement? He wasn't sure. All he knew was that when he opened his eyes, Henry was standing over Rip Red, ready to plunge his sword into the sleeping rat's back. Dun, dun, dun. All right, so for your flip grid today, you're going to tell me, were you right about the orange spider? Were you right about your prediction about the orange spider? Your second part of your flip grid, do you think Henry will kill Rip Red? Do you think Henry will kill Rip Red? So number 1, were you correct about your prediction about the orange spider? Number 2, will Henry kill Rip Red? All right, guys, I love y'all so much, and I cannot wait to read the next chapter with you tomorrow.